The Eye on College Basketball Podcast is, of course, presented by Jersey Mike's Subs. Jersey Mike's, a sub above. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, please smash the like button like you're Brandon Davies. You have consent. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Knock that out while you're here. Let's get into it. This is not when we usually do episodes. If you're watching live on YouTube, you know it's a little after 10 a.m. Eastern. On Sunday morning. So this is an unusual time, but we wanted to go ahead and get this episode done earlier than normal because today is, I don't know if you heard, today is Super Bowl Sunday. And also I got a tea time and also pretty much everything we were ever going to talk about on Sunday's episode was going to happen on Saturday anyway. Only one ranked team has a Sunday game. It's number one Purdue. We've talked a lot about Purdue in recent weeks, so we'll get back to the Boilermakers later in the week, regardless of what happens with them on a Sunday afternoon. We decided to not wait for Purdue and go head-to-head with Church.
That's right. We're going head-to-head with Church every single time.
I'm not scared to go head-to-head with Church. More of us. More of us.
I know. Listen, I don't know if I love the Gravedigger Phelps there. The man's getting up there in age. I just don't want us to run into a spot where that might not be the most appropriate intro. That's all I'm saying. Maybe we rethink that. It also sounds like you're putting him in the ground at the start of every episode.
I killed Digger Phelps.
I'm just saying. I gotta mention it. This is the third one in a row. I didn't know if it was a one-time thing. We might want to think that one through some more, and then we have cursed Purdue. So when Purdue loses later today against Northwestern, our apologies. We'll get to that on the next episode.
If I run the Illinois train right off the tracks and kill Digger Phelps in the same season, put me in the Naismith Memorial Hall of Fame.
No, I don't think that's where you're going if that happens.
I want to go to the Naismith Memorial Hall of Fame as the person who just kept screwing up things and then decided to go head-to-head with Church. Not scared to go head-to-head with Church.
Mm-hmm. Anything of note happened yesterday, GP? Or a rare Sunday morning episode? And geez, right onto the on-ramp here. There's
some big surprising news from Saturday. Duke can't catch a break. Game officials are no longer allies of the Blue Devils, it appears. They screwed Duke, the refs did. Saturday at the end of regulation in what was an eventual overtime loss at Virginia. Few hours after the game went final, late Saturday, the ACC announced, the league office, what we all knew in real time, which is that the refs, they screwed Duke at the end of regulation in that eventual loss at Virginia. If for the sake of the conversation, you'll agree.
Come on, Duke.
Even if you run a Virginia fan account, if for the sake of the conversation, you'll agree that Cal Filipowski, a 77% free throw shooter, would have likely, not definitely, but likely, at least made one of two free throws at the end of regulation, then you have to agree that the officials literally cost Duke a quad one win on the road against the top 10 team, dead leg. Everybody knows it's hard to replace a legend, and even harder when you don't get the same calls that the legend would have gotten. Where were you, Matt Norlander, when you realized the officials are out to get Duke in year one of the John Shire era?
I was sitting there at the CBS Sports HQ desks in the studio in Stamford, Connecticut, next to the great Hakeem Dermish, and this was the moment when it became Tony Bennett's league. That's basically what happened on Saturday. Because this is, and I fully agree. We're already seeing in the comments. You saw it yesterday. Hakeem even brought it up to me on the HQ show. If Krzyzewski is on the sidelines, or if this is at Cameron, Filipowski's going to the line.
And they're going to give him 8 free throws.
Okay,
they're going to give him 8 free throws. They'd say, hold up. That's Coach K's team. 8 free throws at the buzzer.
That's not where Krzyzewski was yesterday. You know where he was? The Garden.
He was at St. John's Province.
Friars Johnny's.
He went to see Mike Anderson re-energize his career. Golden Gate Mike.
He was.
Coach K went to see Golden Gate Mike on Super Bowl Eve.
I know.
Who had that? Who had that? Who called
Nobody.
that one?
Although, to those who are unaware, the athletic director at St. John's is Mike Cragg, was a long-time administrator.
What is going on? All these mics just hang out together? All these mics just hang out together? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, triple Mike.
Yeah,
That's
I
right.
need to. I guess I need to go see what Gary Payton and Gary Payton Jr. are up to.
Well, you might actually need to do that. We might need some clarity on that
Give
before
him
the
a
end of the day.
shot. Give him a shot. I need to give him a shot so he can
Exactly.
play.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot to get to with this whole situation. Yes, the ACC late on Saturday. I'm not going to read the whole statement, but they handled it wrong. It was incorrect. I did have this. The only soundbite the podcast was able to acquire from the officials, who didn't supply an official comment. The ruling at the end of that play at regulation, I think this was Jeff Anderson. Here's what he said.
Defense.
Oh, okay. All right. So it was just defense. Okay. Here's the deal. Jeff Anderson, by the way, was involved in back-to-back controversial endings. I did go and check and see if it was a Higgins situation with his schedule. It is not. Jeff Anderson, he worked 3 games in 4 days. I got no issue with that. He worked Providence, Georgetown, and Rhode Island on Wednesday, had the day off for travel Thursday, called Butler Xavier Friday. That was a 7:00 tip, and then they tipped off in Seaville on Saturday at 4:00. I don't have an issue with that, but I did check just in case this was like a 6 games in 7 day situation. It wasn't. However, and Xavier fans have been probably gritting their teeth even more so after this, because here's the deal. On Friday night, before we even get to the Duke Virginia stuff, on Friday night, bang, bang play near the end of the game. Xavier's at Butler, and Xavier didn't play well enough. And when Sean Miller had zero issue with the call, because he admitted, and he's right, Xavier did not play well enough to win the game. It didn't deserve to win the game. Butler deserved to win it. But Anderson called a goaltending on Jack Nunge, and Anderson was at half court. You almost never get that. It was actually probably more of Colby Jones, if you're going to call the goaltend, but they called it on the wrong guy, period. And so they buffed that call.
But I thought they got that call right.
I thought that was I looked at the video a couple times. I actually thought that Nunge got the block, and it was more Colby coming in from help that would have been the goaltend. But
They hit the rim.
They got the rim on it. But I think it wasn't Nunge that did that. It was Colby Jones. But the point is, Anderson made the call from half court on Nunge, and it was the incorrect call on Nunge. It would have been Colby. Wrong in technicality, maybe right in spirit. That's all. I just bring that up to say.
Okay, I'm with you. I'm with that. Sure.
Same official back-to-back nights. Now, this play goes down. First of all, the supreme irony of Kyle Filipowski being in this spot. He's been Duke's leading scorer. Jeremy Roach is the team's most important / probably best player, but Filipowski has been leading the team in scoring, 15.5 per game going into Saturday. He was scoreless. In fact, if you'd actually watched the trend line, he had dropped 29 on Virginia Tech, and subsequently to that, GP, in each game, he went down to 18, then 16, then 14, then 9. He did not have a point in this game. And so for the ball to end up in his hands, Tyrese Proctor, that was almost a 5-second call, but 5 seconds is really 6 seconds. I'm not going to quibble on that. I've heard the chirping from Virginia fans. He should have been called for the 5-second call. They shouldn't have even gotten the inbounds pass. I'm just not going to parse on that, because 5 seconds really is 6. Officials always give you a beat. He got the beat. One more, and I get it. But it was super, super, super tight that he got it in there. And then the drive to the hoop. I thought it was a phenomenal display of athleticism between all these players, because it gets down to, okay, did they foul him before it goes 0-0? Well, it's also, the Filipowski, when he goes airborne, has the right to land safely, okay? Had he been on the ground, it's a different kind of situation. But once he leaves the ground to make the attempt, he's allowed to land safely, even if that comes after 0-0s. Beekman makes an awesome play. To me, it's hand on ball first, but then it's forearm on forearm before we get to 0-0s. But the thing that makes the ACC look worse in all this, GP, is that even with the statement, did you pick up on this? Because listen, there is JFK level Zapruder film right now with this play from the alternate angle, which I'm still not convinced isn't contact against Beekman. But in the ACC statement, and this must have been said on the broadcast or over the arena, but I was in the HQ studio. I didn't have the volume up on this game when it happened. They called the foul on Ryan Dunn. I actually don't see a lot of contact by Dunn on the play, but he's the one that was assessed the call. So to me, this was a botch all around, and I cannot remember a time when something like this has ever happened. I'm sure it has. I'm just telling you, I've been searching through my brain for any other time where we had an end of game situation and there was a bang bang play, a foul was called, and then it was subsequently overturned / reversed. That's exactly what happened here. The fact that it involved Duke makes it even more shocking, and the officials screwed it up. I just don't understand how they blew it like this. Most people realized in real time what was actually happening there. There's a faction of people that are all ball truthers. Like, there are people out there that think Beekman got nothing but ball. I want to be clear on this. It was a phenomenal defensive play, and Reese Beekman's one of the best defenders in the country. It was awesome. The
only people who think this wasn't a foul, they pleasured themselves to Cow Guy.
All right, fair enough. It was an incredible play between two awesome athletes meeting at the top, meet me at the summit, and Beekman just gets him enough. It just gets him enough. I actually, if it would have been a no call, it would have been controversial as well, but I actually think the athleticism on display there was really, really awesome. Filipowski should have been going to the line. Now, he would have had to made one. He hadn't had a point on the board, so there's no guarantee, but the chances are he's sinking at least one of those. Duke gets a road win, and what do you want from me? Shire, I'll take it after this, Sheepy. Shire got robbed. I mean, he even said afterward, he and Bennett, they never got an explanation. Now, they're probably going to get one maybe privately from the league today, maybe, I guess. And I was surprised the ACC actually it wasn't fast enough, but I was surprised it put out a statement as it did on Saturday there. Shire's going through everything in year one, man. I mean, between illnesses and injuries and bad losses and the ups and downs of it all, he is really checking off every box imaginable of the head coaching experience. So that's a rough one. And I am all too aware that there are many, 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 many people that are like, oh, Duke got screwed. Where's my violin? I know that I know you're out there as well. I don't care about that. We're talking about what actually happened and how the officials screwed up this end of game protocol. They did. And because of that, it flipped the game. Virginia got the win. And credit to Virginia once they got to OT, because Duke had the time. Duke had all the opportunity in overtime. Didn't take advantage of it. Virginia gets the win. Here we are.
I hate the idea that, well, they still went to overtime. They had a chance to win. No, they should have had a chance to win at the end of regulation. Like, every time something like this happens, there's somebody out there real eager to point out there's a lot of plays in a game and no one play decides a game. Yes, sometimes one play does decide a game. And that was the perfect example of it. A perfect example of it. Yeah, I know there are missed calls and missed shots, made shots for 40 minutes of a regulation college basketball game. But when you are tied in the final seconds and you are fouled going to the basket, and it's actually like the whistle is blown and it's called a foul, and you're supposed to be shooting free throws, and then they overturn it for no good reason. In fact, for all wrong reasons, then they cost you a game. They cost you a game. The refs cost Duke a quad one win on the road over a top 10 team. That is undeniable to any reasonable human being. And
they're coming for you.
That's fine.
I'm just playing.
Yeah, they're wrong. John Adams used to run all the officials. All right?
Yes.
He's on Twitter saying, okay, of course it was a foul, but even the ACC's explanation is wrong, because they say it was a foul that came after the clock hit all zeros. But even But the ref said, because here's apparently what happened. Tell me if I get any of this wrong. Okay. The refs looked at it and said the foul comes on all zeros, so it's not a foul.
Mm-hmm.
And the ACC said the shot comes before it's all zeros, so even if the contact comes after all zeros, it is still a foul. And then because
he's airborne, right. He has the right to land safely without obstruction.
And then John Adams jumps on Twitter and says, well, like, okay, they're right in the sense that even if the contact came after all zeros, if the shot came before all zeros, then it's a foul. But the truth is the foul came before all zeros, which is what I see when I watch that.
I agree.
So if you're somebody arguing against this, you're literally arguing with the ACC and John Adams. It's like arguing with Beyonce about how to perform something. Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is the thing I can never understand. If you're a Virginia fan, here's what you should say. Oh boy, we got away with one there. And I don't even mind it because we're trying to win another ACC title. It's
Yeah.
fine. Appreciate your good fortune, but don't deny it's good fortune. That's just dumb.
Yeah,
and here's the thing that makes it like 50 times worse than what it otherwise would have been. Here's the truth. Blow that whistle, don't blow that whistle in real time. I don't care. I mean, I given the benefit of slow motion HD replay.
Agreed.
Given the benefit of slow motion HD video, I think it's a foul. You should have blown the whistle. But in real time, blow the whistle, don't blow the whistle. Boy, I understand. I get it. It's a really tough play live. But once you call it a foul, there is no scenario you can go to that monitor and overturn that. That is outrageous. And I do not think they do that to Mike Krzyzewski. I mean, that was the easy go-to joke.
Like, but it's also based in logic and pragmatism.
Yeah, I don't think there is no way they overturn that for Mike. They overturn that on Mike Krzyzewski. There's
Those
no way.
Are never working a game again if this happens and K's on the sideline.
I had somebody who is, familiar. I just put familiar with the Duke program, who said he thought John should have lost it and got a technical even going into overtime on that, just to show you can't do this to me. And I don't know whether that's true or not, but I get the sentiment because they did that to him in a way that they would not have done that to K. And I can't interpret what was said in the handshake line, but it looked like Tony Bennett even was like, yo, man, that's tough. Like, I don't know if he went so far as to say, you guys got screwed. I'm sorry. But
I think if you really zoom in, it's like, yo, man, that's tough. Suck it. And then they kept walking. Yeah.
No, Tony seemed to, and I've seen other coaches do this before, seemed to acknowledge, yo, that's a rough one, man. That's a rough one. Because they got it wrong. And again, not just getting it wrong live, I don't have a problem with, because that is actually part of basketball.
Yeah.
But getting it wrong on the monitor, that should not happen the way that happened.
I agree, which brings me to my last point. And that is, and I said this on HQ. Game happens. This, they overturn the call. It's just hard to accept. But if this happened in the NCAA tournament, first of all, the story would be 5 times as big, 10 times as big. Duke in the tournament. Are you kidding me? But when that happens, the NCAA, because it runs the tournament, the NCAA is not running this Virginia Duke game. The ACC is running it. You will have a designated pool reporter from the media will go and meet with the lead official from a game. And that official will provide a statement to the pool reporter. Even that process can be improved a little bit, but at bare minimum, when there's a controversial call or non-call, something that happens that is impacted by officiating, after the game, we are guaranteed a statement from the NCAA and it's officiating, and there's a head of officials. There's a new guy actually in charge of it this year, Chris Rastatter. We'll see how he goes in year 1. This is actually a pretty good tune-up to this kind of stuff. That is not the case with these leagues, and it needs to change, okay? If you are an official and you make a call and it is of grave consequence that literally does flip the outcome of a game, right? Or determines whether or not it goes to overtime, one team wins versus one team loses, the officials need to be held to a higher account. It's not that hard. You'll keep your job. After a game, the home venue. So in this case, Virginia's hosting the game. It determines by the media that's going there. One reporter at minimum is determined before tip. Okay, if we need a pool reporter, you're that person. You get to go to the official's locker room, meet outside with the official, and get the statement or ask 1 or 2 questions. And at minimum, get that, because realistically, we're never going to get to a point where you're going to have a zebra go up to the press conference dais, sit in front of 40 media members, and take questions for 10 minutes. We'd love that. I would love to question
a zebra in a press conference setting. Wouldn't that be hilarious?
It would be. It would be. Getting it in and out. You know what I mean?
Talking to it.
Yeah, exactly. So we're not going to have that, but at minimum, during the regular season, the officials need to be held to account, because what would happen there in that scenario would also help provide information or an explanation. It might not be satisfactory, but it would provide something to the coaches. I mean, as of Sunday morning, does Tony Bennett and does John Shire, do they have any more real clarity on this? They didn't have it after the game. They get asked about it by the press, and they can't provide any context or information because they weren't given it. So the leagues need to improve their credibility and really help officials more in this by all you got to do. Listen, I understand people love to get absolutely furious with the officials. And I think for the most part, they do an extremely hard job, extremely well. Okay. They miss calls. It's part of it. But if you just have some accountability, it helps you in the long run. That's what we need to have here. Leagues need to have their officials be willing to say something on the record, something explanatory within 10, 20, 30 minutes of a game ending so that we can have better resolution around these things and not have it dangling in the air forever and ever and ever.
I think when there's a controversial call, they should actually bring a zebra into the media room, and you should get to ask a zebra questions and see how it responds. What language do you think that you would ask a question to a zebra in? I say French.
Okay. I don't know where to go with that. I regret ever bringing up the word zebra. But if you want to swap out zebra for Gravedigger Phelps, I'm all for it.
I hope Digger Phelps is doing well.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
All right, let's do it.
Do you know how improbable it is to lose on 2 buzzer beaters in a 4-day span? It's a rhetorical question. Somehow Tennessee just did it. We'll discuss it next, but first a word from our partners.
You and I have traveled to the far reaches of space. But something's different now. This is the end, my friend. Got it!
So I don't know if you know how improbable it is to lose on 2 buzzer beaters in a 4-day span, but Deadleg does. He tweeted that the odds are infinitesimal.
You want to give that one more try?
Infinitesimal.
One more?
Infinitesimal.
Infinitesimal.
Let's stop here for a second. Let's stop here for a second.
You want the official definition?
No, I want the official story of how you even know this is a word. Like, I got a better chance of seeing the Pac-12 network on a television than ever hearing that word out in the wild, even if I'm talking to a zebra. Where'd you learn that word?
It's not a common word, but it's not infinitesimal is not an uncommon word. It gets dropped every so often.
I thought I was reading a John Gassaway tweet. You put that word out there.
You know what? It might as well have been.
Nobody tweets. Nobody types more words that I've never heard of than John Gassaway.
That's right. It means it is a value that is practically immeasurable, but extremely close to zero is basically the way that I would say it. Because if you look at what Tennessee did, how about this? Let me set this up for you real quick, okay? Because I went back and I checked the play-by-play data, knowing we'd hit on this. Here's the past 2 games, okay? It's infinitesimal, all right?
That's what I've been saying.
Earlier in the week, playing at Vandy, okay? What happens here? All right, so Vandy had 4 fouls to give against Tennessee. So to even set up the scenario to allow them to maybe be in position to lose the game, Tennessee keeps inbounding the ball and Vandy keeps fouling them just to get into the bonus. They had like 2 fouls with 15 seconds to go in that game. On one of those plays, Julian Phillips cuts loose, has an ocean to the hoop, and could have taken a layup to give Vanderbilt a 4-point lead with 11 seconds to go. He opts not to do that. Had he done it, we don't know for sure if Tennessee would have won, but probably would have, but he doesn't take it. He just wants to bleed more clock. He winds up bleeding an extra 1.5 seconds. That doesn't even lead to foul shots. They got to inbound it again, this time under the hoop. Eventually, Santiago Vescovi gets to the line. It's a 1-and-1. He's a 79% free throw shooter. He misses the front end of the 1-and-1 with 8 seconds to go. Vanderbilt gets it to half court, calls timeout. Tennessee D collapses on the driver, kicks it out to Tyron Lawrence, cans it from the corner, time expires, Vanderbilt wins by 1. That in general is such an extremely unlikely scenario. Then you go to the next game. Tennessee enters this game averaging 55 points allowed per game. It's the best defense in the country. Missouri winds up scoring more points on Tennessee than any other team so far this season. All right. It shoots better from the field. It shoots better from 3-point range. It does all of it. Okay. It hit 14 threes in this game, which, by the way, is regression to the mean for the Tennessee 3-point defense. I told you earlier in the season that would happen. They're at like 22%. That is not, you cannot keep up that rate. Some of that is flat out defensive luck. They've got an amazing defense, but that is outrageous. Okay. Vescovi on Saturday goes to the line again and misses his first shot. First of two. He's not a 1-and-1. He misses the first. And then, how often do you see a lane violation? They happen. The odds aren't infinitesimal for a lane violation, but Tobe Awaka steps early on Vescovi's shot. They lose the foul shot. 4.2 to go. No timeout situation. None whatsoever. Missouri has the scramble. And DeAndre Golston, this was his second, like, near half-court buzzer beater of the season. He did this earlier in the year to beat UCF. Outrageous. Sometimes the gods smite you. Sometimes they reward you. Tennessee has been on the Rick Barnes pissed off somebody, and I don't know what he did, but we need to get to the bottom of it, because to lose back-to-back games like this is outrageous. I'm sure it's out there. I feel like this actually happened. I was thinking about it, Parrish, but I couldn't remember. I feel like there was a team in the past 1 or 2 seasons that we got on this pod and talked about. They either lost back-to-back buzzer beaters or they lost 2 in a 3-game span. We talked about how Louisville kept losing all those games by 1 point, and that had like never happened. But I feel like maybe there was a team that got dropped in the same kind of scenario, but this almost never happens. True buzzer beaters, and you're done. Back-to-back games. Great win for Missouri. Both teams are 19-6.
Louisville started losing games by 30, so that whole 1-point thing didn't matter anymore.
That's true.
But I remember it taking place. Yeah, it's just. Do you subscribe to the idea that some of this falls on the coaching staff, because you've been beat twice now at the buzzer in foul up 3 situations? You didn't foul up 3, and here we are. I'm a foul up 3 guy myself.
I lean foul up 3, but I'm not absolutely dedicated to the cause, because it can bite you, and it does. If it was 100%, it would happen every time. It's not 100%. You do have the occasional situation where it winds up really biting you in the ass and you wind up losing there. But I lean toward foul up 3 under 6 seconds. That's my rule. Under 6 seconds, foul up 3.
That's what coaches have told me the data shows. It's not, because sometimes I hear people, shot clock's off, 17 seconds left in a game, you're up 2, and you'll hear an announcer say they should foul here. You're like, no, that's too early. No, you don't do it at 17 seconds. But at 6, yeah, 5, of course. And Tennessee had opportunities in both of these games to do that, and either chose not to do it or didn't properly execute the foul up 3 strategy. I don't know if you know Jared Burson. He invented ESPN Stats Info. Still owns it today. So he tweeted that Tennessee scored 1.42 points per possession and lost, and it's the most points per possession a losing team has scored in a Division I game since 2019. That was rare stuff.
Borderline infinitesimal.
I never heard that word before.
That's outrageous. Tennessee had, now credit to Mizzou. It got up by like 17 in this game, and Tennessee fought back. Just unbelievable. Just a couple of extremely unlikely endings in the sport on Saturday, and Tennessee, whether or not it's a valid Final Four team and the stakes of how they lost this game, I don't conflate those two things. I don't think they're all that connected. This was a freaky, fluky type ending there, but it's all the more reason if you really want to fade on the Vols. They played a really good offensive team, and that top ranked defense, it failed them. It did not show up to play well at all. Tennessee had done enough to come back and win, and then you catch a guy taking a running 35-footer at the buzzer and they cash it. So sometimes that's what's going to happen there. But Tennessee, it's a seed line knock. So
wow,
that's a seed, and not the only team, by the way. We're getting to you, Arizona. Seed line knock for the Vols. I'm afraid this was a team that was fighting for the 1 line. It's a 3 at best right now.
Yeah, I don't think they can get to the 1 at this point. I mean, I'd never say never, but they've got 4 losses outside of quadrant 1 now, 5 losses to sub 40 net teams. This must be shocking to the Tennessee fans who just like 2 weeks ago thought I was crazy for not having Tennessee ranked at least number two in the top 25 and 1. To have 5 losses to sub 40 sub 40 net teams on February 12th, that's not the type of thing a number 1 seed would have on its resume. Not the type of thing a top 10 team at this point would even have on its resume. So on Saturday, you and I were both. I was at home. You were with CBS Sports HQ in Connecticut, but we both wrote about SEC teams. I wrote about Alabama winning again, now 12-0 in the SEC. You wrote about Kentucky losing again, now according to most people who put together brackets, on the wrong side of the bubble. On one hand, I've seen this a little bit. Kentucky was shorthanded. What are you going to do? On the other hand, you lost to a very, at best, mediocre Georgia team. More accurately, not good Georgia team. Tell folks what you had to say about John Calipari's Kentucky Wildcats.
Well, Parrish is going to drop a little knowledge here on you on Bama in just a second. We go into the weekend with 2 preseason hype teams, 2 blue blood programs, facing games where they're standing in tournament projections for the moment. Like it's either you're in or you're out, depending on what you do. Carolina, credit to you. You kicked butt versus Clemson. You didn't make it a game. Nothing was in doubt. You showed up, home venue, all that good stuff, whatever. Credit to UNC, got the win. Keep moving forward. We'll see if you can build on it. Kentucky failed its test. And no, it did not have Severe Wheeler, CJ Frederick. Case and Wallace got into some foul trouble. That didn't help, obviously, running the offense without having a reliable point guard there. I get all that. But we keep coming back to the same codas in the same song for Kentucky. And while I also wrote in that column, because I believe it, like it would be lazy to say season's done, team can't make the tournament. No, Kentucky can make the tournament. It's got at Mississippi State, quad 1 opportunity. Home to Tennessee, quad 1 opportunity. At Florida, even if Florida's not that good, quad 1 opportunity. It's got home versus Auburn, quality win opportunity. At Arkansas to close the season, quad 1 opportunity. And then it'll have at least one more in the SEC tournament. Kentucky has more than enough opportunities still available to itself to make the tournament. It's there. The question is, does it have the capability of actually doing that? Because it has been up and down consistently throughout the season. Credit to winning, 6 games in a 7-game stretch, and those 6 wins being in SEC play, including that big-time win over Tennessee, although that win, while still valuable, it just doesn't have the cachet now that it did almost a month ago when they got there. I don't know, man. And it's on Cal to get this fixed. I don't know if he can get it fixed. The roster is good enough that he should. It still remains very troubling that despite having good stat lines, Sheboy had 22 and 14. Let me bring this up again. Sheboy had 20 points, 14 boards, 4 assists, 4 blocks, no turnovers, 4 fouls. Like from a stat line perspective, he played well. If you watch the game, there were multiple moments where he was a liability. And for the second straight weekend, Calipari said after this on Saturday, it was on radio. The week before it was in the presser. He's saying like there are moments here where you can't have Sheboy on the floor, and he's the reigning national player of the year. You just can't have this. Jacob Toppin continues to be unreliable, show flashes, and Kentucky is staring down some real bad history right now. It has made the only other time that Kentucky has not made the tournament, at least 2 times in 3 years. The only other time, or the only time to this point, it's tracking right now not to. The only time that's ever happened was the late 80s into the early 90s. And the only reason why that was the case is because Kentucky got caught cheating and then was on a 2-year postseason ban. And then they brought in Rick Pitino and he changed the direction of the program. So they literally could not go. Every other era since 1947, Kentucky can reliably, it makes the tournament almost every year, but in 2 out of 3 years. It does not miss 2 in a 3-year stretch. And that's what it's staring down right now. Made it last year, obviously, but even last year, like the St. Peter's loss it's starting to feel like a hangover they can't shake. And then before that was the 9-16 year, which is the worst year in the history of Kentucky basketball. It's the worst. There have been years where, from a win percentage perspective, it's been worse, but that was in the 20s when they were playing like 16 games. That doesn't match up to what we have here. So Calipari's legacy at this program is getting really complicated because he has the national title. The first half of it, he goes to all these Final Fours, and then the second half of it, it's getting tiresome how often, like, we're talking about Kentucky not meeting expectations. And to anyone, I mentioned this on HQ as well, like, if you think this is going to end with him leaving this job, it's just not going to happen. Like, he's got the number one class coming in. If we are talking February 12th, 2024 about all this stuff, I hear you. Like, then it'll be time. But that's just with the contract he has and the class he's got coming in, there's not going to be a separation here. They can turn it around, but they, again, when you watched them, you just didn't see a team that, like, Georgia looked like the team that was fighting for its NCAA tournament life on Saturday, in my opinion.
Georgia just beat them. This wasn't even like, oh, but Kentucky had a bad second half. Georgia just beat them for 40 minutes.
Agreed. Yeah. Kentucky had a little bit of stuff going in the second half, and then Georgia just came back. And credit to Mike White for getting the win. He's actually doing a really good job in year one, showing why he was a really good coach at Florida, even if it got shaky at the end. But that's my basic takeaway on Kentucky. I mean, if you springboard on it, if you want, I actually think what you picked up on Bama was even more interesting than what Kentucky failed to do on Saturday.
The only thing I'll say about Kentucky is I agree they can still turn it around and they can still make the NCAA tournament. I guess I would, while acknowledging that reality, also say, what have you seen to make you think they're going to do it? Like, they, outside of how they played in Knoxville one day. And what we're finding out about that is, like, you can be a bad team and beat Tennessee. A lot of bad teams have done it. Or at least a lot of average teams have done it. So on one hand, you look back at that Kentucky win in Knoxville and you go, well, there they were. They went on the road, beat a top 10 team. That was at the time a top 10 team that has now shown an ability to lose to anybody. Home, away, you name it. Not anybody, but you get the point. Again, I'll just keep it factual. Tennessee has 5 losses to sub-40 net teams. So what does beating Tennessee really mean? I mean, it's a nice win. You'd rather beat them than not. But just because you can beat Tennessee doesn't mean that you're headed in the right direction or turns something around. It just means you beat Tennessee. And outside of that, there's just really not much there. So I'm not ruling anything out. It's February 12th. But on last Wednesday's episode, I said I thought North Carolina would make the NCAA tournament and Kentucky would not. I feel stronger about that today than I felt about it on Wednesday. It seems more likely to be true today than it seemed last week. As for Alabama, I sort of touched on this in the lead to the top 25 and one last week, one day. And I believe we'd sort of addressed it on the podcast here or there. But I don't know. I was just I don't know how many casual fans recognize what type of SEC season Alabama is having. Because Alabama has never been ranked number 1. Alabama got blasted by nearly 30 at Oklahoma a few weeks ago. And so those things have sort of hidden the fact that Alabama is having an all-time great SEC season right now. Crimson Tide went to Auburn, won on Saturday, tight game, pulled away late, won the game by 8. And so Alabama is now 12-0 in the SEC and winning their league games by an average of 21.1 points. 10 of the 12 have been double-digit wins. The only 2 that haven't been the Auburn game yesterday, and oddly, or not, maybe there is an explanation for it, given that Mississippi State is really good defensively, but they beat Mississippi State by 3. They beat Mississippi State by 3 at home, beat Auburn by 8 on the road. Everything else is double-digit wins. They beat Kentucky by 26, beat LSU by 40, beat Vanderbilt by 57, winning their league games by an average of 21.1 points. The last team to start 12-0 in the SEC was Kentucky in 2015, that fabulous team that was 38-0 in the Final Four, went 18-0 in the SEC, had Devin Booker, had Karl Towns, had a bunch of other talented players, but probably too many because Devin Booker didn't play the amount of minutes he should have played. And honestly, none of the great players on that team played as many minutes as they should have played, which was cool for 38 games.
Yeah.
And then it went the wrong way. Kentucky 2015 is widely regarded as one of the best teams ever to not win a national championship. The computer numbers back that up. And that Kentucky team in 2015 that went 18-0 in the SEC had Devin Booker, had Karl Anthony Towns. They won their league games by 16.7 points. Alabama this season is winning its SEC games by an average of 21.1 points. I am not saying this version of Alabama is better than that version of Kentucky. What I am saying, because it's true, is this version of Alabama is beating SEC teams more badly, more consistently than that Kentucky team did. That's wild.
I was told there are no great teams this year in college basketball. Bama's doing this, and Purdue has a mastodon. So I'm just going to push back. I'm going to nudge back on it. That's all. When you look at what Alabama's doing, because it is a machine, and I would even argue that Alabama has not hit its peak. I think there's still more. Brandon Miller.
What? Tell that to Vanderbilt.
I know.
Text Jerry Stackhouse right now and tell him you don't think we've seen the best of Alabama, because I bet he saw the best of Alabama.
It's got another gear. So between that, I mean, that's really good perspective there on what it's doing within the context of the SEC, because we may well look back on April 6th and be talking about a championship winning Crimson Tide team in basketball and say, yeah, but you know what? They lost 93-69 at Oklahoma. What the hell happened there? So there is the one random stinker in this run. That's the only loss in 2 months, man. Only loss. They're looking tremendous. And Auburn put up a good fight. Game was actually closer than the final 8-point margin, in my opinion. But it was a fun game, good game. But Bama's the better team, and it exhibited that on Saturday and getting the win and not messing around and doing that. And it maintains a 2-game lead in the SEC. Most might not realize this. GP obviously does, but your second place team in the SEC continues to be Buzz Williams, Texas A&M Aggies, which got the win on the road at LSU to stay 10-2. And here's the deal: it goes Bama, then A&M 2 games behind, and then now Tennessee is 2 games behind A&M. So the likelihood is that A&M is going to finish second place in the SEC. There's still some tricky ones. They got 3 road games remaining, and we'll see if they can get through it. But they're certainly pacing to finish second, which is a surprise. But GP had A&M ranked in the preseason, so he was, broadly speaking, expecting to be A&M in this spot. The way it's gotten there has been how about another word? They've circumnavigated and done it relatively quietly, because there's not a lot of, I'm going to say it, there's not a lot of sex appeal with Texas A&M. There's just not.
What?
I would think that you have to agree. But
you ever seen those Yale practices?
I have not, and I'm thankful for it.
Those are the most awkward things I've ever seen in my life. These goofy students, they go and they yell stuff. They gather. They plan it.
They do gather. They congregate is what they do.
That's the most uncomfortable thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
That's weird behavior they're doing down there.
Timothy in the chat says Parrish looks like Buzz Williams' cousin. You look like Mick Cronin's older brother, so that's where we start. We start with GP on that, but yes, he's got some brothers in the coaching fraternity, no doubt about it.
I would love to be Buzz Williams' cousin. I would trade any 2 of my actual cousins to be Buzz Williams' cousin. Any two. You can pick them. Can you name all your cousins? I don't even think I know all my cousins.
Yeah, I can. I don't have. I've only got like 9 or so. I can name them all. Yeah.
Like if you saw them all out in the wild, you'd identify them. Like if you were just in an Applebee's one night, and one of your cousins was you would. There's no scenario where you could get seated in a booth next to your cousin and you wouldn't recognize them.
Yeah, no, I got that. I got that covered. Actually, you know what? I can't. You know what? I can't. You know why? Because my mother's younger brother had 6 kids.
Whoa.
And I can't name all 6. So I can't name, but they grew up in Alaska, so I never met them. I can't name all 6, so I can give you hello. Is it me or do we? Okay.
What in the world? Where's our names at, by the way?
Whatever. Okay. If you're listening, you don't know what just happened. So it's all YouTube. So I can't. No, I'm at like. So I forgot about the 6 on that side. So I'm at probably like 15 cousins. I can give you probably 13 out of 15. No, I'm not going to list them off right now.
You have cousins who live in igloos?
No.
What if they
live
lived in
like
an igloo?
they live like 20 miles from Fairbanks. Like they weren't.
I think everybody who lives in Alaska lives in an igloo. Is that true or not?
That would be called stereotyping. Not true. Yeah.
Can you prove it?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen an actual house in Alaska?
Yes, my grandmother also. Rest in peace to my grams. She lived in a house in Alaska. So yes, I've. Yeah.
Any chance the Phelps family handled your grandmother's funeral?
No chance. Not a chance.
That would have been something.
Did not happen. You want to tour the rest of the weekend here?
Other notable results from the weekend: Arizona lost at Stanford, which must have been like shocking for the Arizona fans who kept tweeting me last week because I dared to have Arizona outside of the top 5 and the top 25 and 1. I bet they couldn't believe Arizona would lose a game like that. Creighton extended its winning streak to 8. Got a victory over UConn inside the Connor Oberst Arena, so that was nice for the Blue Jays. Oklahoma State beat Iowa State. 5 straight wins from Mike Boynton's Cowboys. UCLA won at Oregon, beat the Ducks on that ugly court. Texas Tech caught Kansas State. Baylor won at TCU. Bears are now 9-1 in their past 10. Indiana won at Michigan. Jett Howard. Woo. I discovered him.
All right. I was thinking about just a reminder. I brought him up on the pod before you did, just so we're clear. But if you want to take credit, that's fine. But yeah,
I discovered Jett Howard.
Right,
I discovered him at the Iverson Classic last summer.
Yeah, and I discovered him before that on the recruiting trail. But whatever, it's fine.
No, I discovered him Iverson Classic last like June or something. Right. April or May or June, somewhere in there. I discovered him. It was in Bartlett. Airballed a jumper in the final seconds. You'll see that too often. No. It was like, and here's Jett Howard for the win. And like, it looked like the shot in the NC State national championship game. Except there was nobody there to grab it and dunk it.
Lorenzo Charles not in the building, not at the Chrysler Center.
Boy, Jett Howard never needed a Lorenzo Charles more in his life than he needed him yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Providence fell at St. John's. Golden Gate Mike, big win. After Adam Zagoria reported that St. John's has no plans to replace Golden Gate Mike. Are you questioning Zags? I'm not.
Zach Braziller, beat writer for the Johnnies, refuted that report. So I just feel
it's New York media beef?
It is. I don't know if it's beef. It's just disagreement.
Let's call it beef. It's New York media beef. I
think we know how this is going to happen. Golden Gate Mike's going to cruise it to 19 wins again. He's going to stick on for one more year. That's how he does. That's how he rolls.
I hope it doesn't escalate to gunfire.
It will not.
Okay.
It will not. Why'd you go there? It will not.
Well, sometimes things escalate to gunfire. We
live in America.
We live in America.
No,
anything can escalate to gunfire in America.
Not with the great Golden Gate Mike. No.
I mean between Zach and Zags.
Okay. No, it's not either. No. Zags is at worst busting out a frisbee. Okay.
What if Zags throws a frisbee at Zag's head?
It's that is non-zero chance.
Right there.
Non-zero.
If you caught a frisbee right there, that'd probably make you cough a little bit at least, right?
Arizona loses at Stanford for the first time since 2009. It had won 23 of its last 25 games against the Cardinal. And the last time Stanford beat Arizona, a ranked Arizona team, back in 05. 05. Arizona was ranked 13th when that happened. Weird one. Similar to how Filipowski had been going against what he had been putting up from an average standpoint. Credit to Jared Haas, man. Azuolas Tubelis came in averaging 27 points and 10.5 rebounds in his past 4 games. He went for 4 points and no boards and 4 fouls. Shut him down. Credit to the Cardinal. Haas is in a hot seat situation, and it's expected Stanford will move on from him at the end of the season. Coaches will take any kind of victories of any kind. But this, big time stuff. Good win. Happy for him. Happy for that staff. if you feel like losses like this one, like Arizona has now shown a few times here, where it's just like it got blown out at Utah. It had the weird one at home against Wazoo. It got blown out against Oregon. The variability with Zona, it's on the table. I'm not as bullish as I once was about me thinking I might try and get cute and put Zona into the Final Four. I might have to pump fake on that. We'll see. But that was as surprising of a result, in my opinion, as any that we saw, even though that was on the road. You mentioned Oklahoma State. Quick on Oklahoma State and Baylor in the Big 12. Baylor wins again. TCU is, it's on a 3-game losing streak and is having some issues there, and so it goes. But Baylor, to me, it's right back in the Final Four conversation. In fact, I would even say, hold off on Oklahoma State for a second. You mentioned Creighton. Creighton and Baylor were both preseason top 10 teams for different reasons. They started well. They dipped, kind of floated off the radar to a certain extent. Creighton much more because Kalkbrenner got mono. They dropped like 6 games in a row. Now Creighton's won 8 in a row in Big East play. Won a grinder of a game. If Jordan Hawkins steps back 6 more inches, it's a 3 instead of a 2, and then they go to overtime. We'll see. Duke had to go to overtime and lost. UConn didn't get the chance to go over to overtime, and it wound up losing. But Creighton and Baylor are the teams that I think have resurfaced as viable Final Four candidates in the February run here, and they both got good wins on Saturday. Oklahoma State is now a clear-cut tournament team as far as I'm concerned. It gave Iowa State its 4th loss in 5 games. Iowa State's only win in that stretch is against Kansas. Meantime, Oklahoma State wins on the road, is 7-1 in Big 12 games with Musa Cisse on the floor. That's their best defender. Musa Cisse might be the best player on Oklahoma State's roster. It's 7-1 in league play when he's on the court. The only loss with Musa Cisse playing in Big 12 games came by only 2 points against
Kansas.
And
that's when the refs screwed that one up.
And it's all, it's all connected right now, man. It's all connected. So OSU, big time winner, has won 7 of its last 8, by the way, against Iowa State. And it doesn't get easier. Every single remaining game for the Cowboys is a quad 1 game. So they've got all these opportunities. They're going to take more losses. I think they're going to play their way into the tournament, though. I think they're going to have done enough there. They're now top 30 in 5 of the top 6 team sheet metrics, 5-6 in quad 1, 3-2 in quad 2. They've got a November 10th home loss to Southern Illinois. That's a quad 3L. So it's dangling there. It's a little bit of a danger thing, but I think they'll be okay. But they came out damn well. So good for Oklahoma State, good for Baylor. Flagler went for 28. He played awesome. Jonathan Shamwa-Chichua played well again. Continues to be an awesome deal. Mike Miles still wasn't back, but Baylor gets a good win, and Creighton does as well. I think that's pretty much it. Pitt won. I mean, it's still tied atop the ACC with Virginia. So shouts to Pitt. Wins at FSU. You just got to, if you're going to be a tournament team, that's one of those things where no one's paying attention to that game aside from Pitt and FSU fans. But go on the road, quietly get the win, keep on pace, don't hurt your resume. Good job by Jeff Capel's team. He's in position to be the ACC Coach of the Year. They got to win and got it done. And I thought that was quietly an important one. In addition to, you mentioned Indiana, which is now the clear-cut second best team in the Big Ten, at least for now. We could look up in a week, and that's no longer the case. But Trace Jackson Davis and Jalen Hood-Schifino again. It's a good team. They're going to get Xavier Johnson back soon. Once they do, Hoosiers, second weekend team. You buying in?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay. All right.
I wish Tom Fornelli were here.
Tom Fornelli is he's loving it right now. Illinois beat Rutgers. Illinois is 8-2 in its last 10. I mean, do you have him in your top 25-1?
Choo choo. Illinois back in the top 25-1 this morning.
Probably deservedly so. Illinois is yet to lose.
Not to get blasted at Penn State. 100% chance.
Oh, Penn State, man. Talk about a team that was.
This is the worst game you could have after re-entering the top 25-1. Because it's not even like a game at Indiana where people are like, well, what are you going to do? It's Indiana. Like, Penn State's good. Like, Penn State's better than Penn State usually is. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
They could beat you there. And yet it's just like, really? You got back in the top 25-1, then you went and lost at Penn State? That's probably about what's about to happen. But either way, for at least 2 days, I'm going to be on the Illinois train again. Choo-choo!
Yeah. The problem is that Illinois did this earlier in the season when it went win-loss for a month. And now it went loss-win. It is yet to lose 2 games in a row this season. Has not happened, but good signs for the Illini. Went on a 19-0 run in this game against Rutgers. And Rutgers at one point did not score a point for 10 minutes. Rutgers is good, but I think it's 3-4 and it's past 7. I don't know. Big Ten's super, super weird. And but good win for Illinois as the Big and again, we're recording this before Purdue plays Northwestern. Who the hell knows what's going to happen there? Michigan State's got to go into Columbus. I mean, if anything of note happens in those, we'll get to that on our next pod. I think that pretty much covers it, right?
We're not going to get to it.
Okay, we'll just ignore it entirely. Fair enough.
We're going to ignore it entirely. Before we get out of here, an update on the New Mexico State story. The program, it was announced on Friday night, has been suspended because of issues outside of the fact that one of its players shot and killed a person at New Mexico earlier this season. It's been a wild story. Norlander, for folks who haven't followed it closely or at all, catch everybody up on what's happening in Las Cruces.
Outrageous story is happening in Las Cruces right now. I can't remember this happening. A program going on pause for non-COVID reasons in the middle of a season. It's undetermined at this hour as we record this podcast if New Mexico State will play another game this season. Friday night, it's announced that the coaches have been suspended on administrative leave and the team's just on pause. Since then, and we'll get to why that is, but since then, the New Mexico State chancellor released a statement. And I think speaking to the severity of this issue, New Mexico State had already gotten on its plane and flown to California for its game against Cal Baptist. It had gotten on the plane, it had landed, it was there. And then a police report was filed. As of the recording of this podcast, the details of that report have not been disseminated by local media. That will happen either Sunday or Monday at the latest. And talking to a couple of sources, and this has been reported elsewhere as well, my understanding is that multiple players on New Mexico State's team in a non-isolated incident, so this happened multiple times in recent weeks, if not months, have been targeting a player on the team. I understand it's one player. The term hazing has been used to me in things that have been speculated to me. I would say this might even be above hazing. It's degrading and completely unacceptable. I don't know if the details will eventually be made public or not, so I'm not going to speak to those. I'm not going to involve the players involved. I'm not going to name any of those people. But it is an extremely serious issue. Now that the chancellor released a statement late Saturday, I'm going to read it in full here. It's 4 paragraphs. I'll be quick. Late yesterday, at my direction, New Mexico State University suspended operations for our men's basketball program until further notice. We took this action after receiving reports of alleged hazing incidents within our men's basketball team. Our players and coaches were in California at the time, preparing to play Cal Baptist. To ensure we fully understood this situation, we canceled that game, called the team back to Las Cruces, and placed the coaching staff on paid administrative leave. Once our student athletes arrived on campus, they were met and interviewed by university personnel who are specially trained to conduct investigations into these kinds of matters. The most important job I have as chancellor of the NMSU system is to ensure our students are safe and protected from harm. That's why I was so heartbroken and sickened to hear about these hazing allegations. Hazing is a despicable act. It humiliates and degrades someone and has the potential to cause physical and emotional harm or even death. Sadly, hazing can become a part of an organization's culture if left unchecked. NMSU policy strictly prohibits hazing in all forms, and it's something we simply will not tolerate. I realize many in our community have additional questions about these alleged incidents and about the future of the men's basketball team. In the near term, team operations remain suspended until further notice. We will share additional information as we can going forward. I don't believe Greg Heyer will keep his job. Many were shocked that he stayed on after the incident with Mike Peake earlier this season, in which he didn't fully cooperate with police to begin with. Kept his job. The staff all of it. So there's going to be a coaching change when that happens. We'll see if there's changes within the athletic department as well. My understanding where this moves going forward is that we will have an answer on New Mexico State's season by Monday at the latest. And by that, I mean whether it's going to continue playing this season, because there are also, in addition to, like, the most important matter is getting to the bottom of what the hell happened inside this program, that locker room, around those facilities, and why a player on the team was being targeted and humiliated. And this isn't like take my bags to the bus. Okay. This isn't take my plate, I just finished it and go. That's not what this is. From what I'm told, it's way more serious than that. And obviously, if the chancellor is making this determination to halt the team, it's super, super serious. From a WAC standpoint, they also have to figure this out, man, because there are other teams that have. New Mexico State's not good. It's at the bottom of the league, but they're scheduled to play games. And so from a standings perspective and getting your conference tournament together and who's going to play whom, and is it going to be no contest? Is it going to be forfeits? Like, that stuff actually needs to be determined relatively soon. The next team on New Mexico State's schedule is Abilene Christian, which is scheduled to play at New Mexico State on Wednesday. We will have an answer as to whether that game is canceled or if the season gets canceled. I would lean that if they don't play the Abilene Christian game, they're not playing any game, and they're just not going to play, and they're just going to do the rare, if not unprecedented thing, and just stop playing, put the program on pause, and then just clean out the program here. We've also had 2 players already transfer out of the program since this happened. A freshman, redshirt guard, Shahar Lazar. He tweeted that he was leaving, and then there was a walk-on named Kent Olaweiler who tweeted, "My recruitment is officially 100% open," end quote. So that's about all of it. Super disturbing story, and that program has been an utter disaster this season. And we're talking about a school, GP, as you well know, that through multiple different coaches has been the best program in the WAC for a decade plus, and made NCAA tournaments. This team just made the tournament. Now, it was Chris Jans was the coach there, but less than a year ago, New Mexico State went to the tournament and upset UConn in the first round of the tournament, and then really gave Arkansas a scare. So it's completely cratered, and I send my genuine best to those that know and love the alleged targeted player on the team here that was on the wrong end of this stuff, because we obviously and quite clearly can't have anything like this in any walk of life, period, but particularly in college basketball. And hopefully we have resolution and more clarity on this, really within the next 24 hours.
I had a coach text me yesterday, and he was like, "So do you think somebody's going to get fired?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think everybody's going to get fired, like everybody." And I know this is not connected to the Mike Leake story, but is it Leak or Peak? Peak. I'm sorry. Yeah. Mike Peak story. But it's just, they mishandled the Mike Peak situation. I had a coach one time tell me, anytime he even gets an email suggesting something wild's going on in his program, he forwards it to compliance immediately. He's like, I've got a $15 million contract. I'm not losing it trying to protect a young adult. And that's never been something I've forgotten, because I can't understand why every other coach doesn't take that approach. Like, when you have a student, like, think about this, forget about a basketball team. What if you were running a business and you had a young adult? Because that's what it is. In our profession, too many people like to say the kids and these kids and the kids and kids. They're not kids. None of them. They're young adults. They're young adults. Imagine you're running a business and you employ, 15 young adults, and one of them is involved in a shooting that results in a death. If the cops come to you, you're like, what do you need? What do you need? Just tell me what you need. You need to talk. There he is. Go talk to him, and let the young adult handle it. The idea that this coaching staff was at least initially keeping law enforcement officials away from talking to potential witnesses, because I need to talk to my athletic. You don't need to talk to your athletic director. You need to say, "Oh, you're telling me some young adults that I supervise might have been involved either directly or indirectly in the killing of a player, of a person, you need to talk to them. Well, I'll tell you where they're at. And if they want to hire lawyers before they talk, that's up to them. But I'm not going to stand in the way of anything. In this case, you've got an assistant coach with the weapon.
Yeah.
You've got a bus leaving Albuquerque. Just a whole lot of things that
getting flagged down by the authorities, like lights on, pull over situation.
Like maybe I would be the worst coach in the world, but if one of my players was involved in a shooting that resulted in the death of a person, we're going to sit right there, and whatever you ask of me, you get from me, because I ain't about to lose my job over this idiot. And I should take that back. There's nothing necessarily idiotic about what happened with Mike Peake here, other than he was breaking curfew and had a weapon. I mean, I guess that is idiotic, but he thought, for people who don't know the story, he thought he was going to meet a girl. He thought he was hooking up, and it was a trap. They lured him to retaliate for something that had happened at a previous event. So whether that's idiotic or not, I guess I can't say for sure. But there's no way I'm risking my job, I guess this is the simplest way to put it, to try to protect or anything some player who's involved in something like this, whether they're in the right or the wrong. And the idea that this staff, not completely, but at least in certain parts of the staff, didn't properly handle this or fully cooperate is just wild to me, because every one of these guys, and unless I'm surprised, every one of these guys is going to be looking for jobs. And when this is going to be on your resume, good luck.
Yep. I presume when we talk on Wednesday, we'll have everything that we need on that story. But the way that it's trending, I'll say this. I'm not putting it out of the realm of possibility that New Mexico State resumes its season and continues playing games. I think that is on the table, but my lean is that this team is not going to play again this season, and the WAC is going to try and figure out what it needs to do and how it's going to fix with scheduling and all that stuff. We will see on that. Quick, let's get out of here, but quick heads up. Monday night games, West Virginia at Baylor. West Virginia got rolled. I mean, another good sign for Texas. Didn't even mess around on Saturday. West Virginia's going to play at Baylor and try and improve its tournament resume. It's still in the mix, but it was non-competitive there on Saturday. Miami plays at UNC on Monday night. That's obviously a very compelling game. The Hurricanes actually got a little bit of a push from Louisville. Credit to Louisville, 93-85. But the Canes got the win, and now we'll see if UNC can win back-to-back home games, continue its really good standing there. So that's Monday to know. And then Tuesday, Kansas and Oklahoma State, as previously noted there. Creighton goes to Providence, plays at the Dunk. Yes, I'm still calling it the Dunk. That's a good one on Tuesday. Illinois at Penn State, as GP mentioned. And then Kansas State, which got dropped by Texas Tech. And now Kansas State's lost 3 of 4 and 4 of its past 6. It's going to go play at an Oklahoma team that is now under 500. So if K-State, this is a get-right game, if you will, but Oklahoma beat Alabama. So I guess there are no true get-right games. Those are some of the biggest and most notable games over the next 2 nights.
Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Huck. Shouts to Larnell. Shouts to Kyle Guy. Thank you guys once again for listening to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed, go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Over at Apple, 5 stars, nice review. Type some words. There's more of us than there are of them. Needs to be reflected in the comments. Like Deadleg said, we're going to talk to you again on Wednesday. Enjoy your Super Bowl if you're listening to this before the Super Bowl. If you're listening to this after the Super Bowl, I hope you enjoyed the Super Bowl. We'll talk to you again soon.
Later, guys.
Bye-bye.